Hello and welcome everyone to the Buddhist Recovery Network Academy. My name is Susanna and I'm joining you from Espoo, Finland. I'm a big fan of Buddhism recovery and I facilitate both 8-step recovery meetings and mindfulness-based addiction recovery courses here in Finland. I'm also a member of the board of the Buddhist Recovery Network and I'm glad to be of service. And tonight here with me doing the service is Stu from the board as well. And I will introduce our speaker a little bit later. So today we have a new academy teaching offered by Vince Cullen, one of our regular teachers. The pronouns are he and him. Thanks for offering and joining us today. The topic of the teaching is looking for the truth, the secret facts of life hidden in plain view. I will tell more about Vince and this talk a little bit later. So thanks everyone for being here and being part of our community today. And some words about Dana. All of our teachings are given freely, and we are blessed with some amazing teachers who have experience on the cushion, experience working with body, speech, and mind, experience in the ongoing practice of recovery by the way of Dharma. As we practice the Buddha's teaching of generosity, that is Dana, we invite you to give Dana that will be given to support our ongoing Buddhist Recovery Network meetings and to support the teacher. You can give on a one-time or regular basis, using the link posted on the chat field. I will post it in just a second. I do have to copy it first. Please be sure to indicate that your donation is for the Academy, and we sincerely thank you for your generosity. So, all right. So now to the main point of the evening. So I'd like to introduce our guest teacher for tonight. Vince Cullen is an ex-alcoholic who has been associated with the Wat Thamkrabok monastery in Thailand and Buddhist-oriented drug and alcohol recovery since 1998. Vince founded and has facilitated Fifth Precept Sangha meditation for awakening sit and share meetings in England, Scotland, Ireland, India, Nepal, Thailand, and the USA, so all over the world, as part of his ongoing teaching of Hungry Ghost retreats. He's a charter member of the Buddhist Recovery Network. Vince has completed both the committed Dharma practitioner and advanced practitioner programs offered by Gaia House in England. He has completed the mindfulness teachers development program offered by Bodhi College in Switzerland and the UK. Vince has twice taken temporary ordination in the unique Buddhist tradition practiced at Wat Thamkrabok, sorry for that, my Thai is not very good, monastery in Thailand. He has previously been a Buddhist prison chaplain in both male and female prisons in the UK. And as said before, the topic for the teaching is looking for the truth, the secret facts of life hidden in plain view. So Vince, the stage or screen is all yours.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you perfect.
Lovely. I'm working between two screens, so my gaze will shift from time to time. Well, thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Stu. Thank you, everyone at BRN for facilitating today's teaching. Thanks, everyone, friends I recognise and friends I don't yet recognise. Thank you all for being here. Yes, the secret facts of life that are hidden in plain view. As human beings, we're not meant to be happy. We're compelled to keep chasing pleasure and to avoid pain. And the Buddha presented his view of our existence as being a very fragile process, ever-changing, impermanent, inconstant, uncertain, subject to unavoidable pain, and for the most part, completely impersonal. And he also offered us insights and tools that encourage and facilitate the possibility of seeing the basic pattern of things as they really are. But the choice is ours whether we're going to follow his suggestions or not. It's a big topic. I hope we can cover some of it at least. after our meditation. But first, to meditate. So I'm going to indulge in digital technology. I'm going to share my screen. So we're going to start today's session with 20 minutes of serenity breathing meditation to calm the breath as best as you can, to relax the body as best as you can, and to quiet the mind as best as you can. For those who are new to meditation, here are some guidelines. For the next 20 minutes, using mindfulness of breathing, you're invited to cultivate serenity of body and serenity of mind. You're invited to practice calm and pleasant abiding in the here and now. For the next 20 minutes, there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to be done, and there's no one special to be or to become. As best as you can, you might take an upright, dignified posture, a posture that represents your heart's desire to awaken. A posture that represents your heart's desire to move away from avoidable suffering and to move towards the end of avoidable suffering, or the lessening of avoidable suffering. Importantly, this movement is made out of compassion for the human condition and not out of aversion to it. So our posture is upright, it's dignified, it's alert, but it's also at ease, it's relaxed. If it's comfortable for you, you might let your eyes gently close. Alternatively, you can leave your eyes half open and just gaze without focus at the ground or floor in front of you. We might start to settle into our meditation by taking a very full, very deep breath in. And a very long, slow breath out, just feeling the breath in the whole body as we do so. And another very full, very deep breath in. A long, slow, deliberate breath out. Getting a sense for your body on the cushion or the chair, or points of contact between yourself and the cushion of the chair, or points of contact with your own hands. Your feet on the floor, getting a sense of being grounded and supported and here amongst friends, even though we might be sitting thousands of miles apart. And now we can let our breath settle down naturally, allow our face to be soft and our jaw to relax. And let our shoulders drop back quite naturally to open up the heart area. You might allow your arms to rest easily at your side and your hands to rest easily in your lap or on your thighs. The Buddha's instructions for the full awareness of breathing say that we should breathe in with mindfulness and we should breathe out with mindfulness. So sometimes it can be helpful to silently note to ourselves, breathing in, I'm fully aware that I'm breathing in, and breathing out, I'm fully aware that I'm breathing out. After a while, once we settle into our meditation, it might be possible to drop this verbal commentary and simply note with full awareness in, out. With this practice, we're invited to bring a friendly, affectionate curiosity, a friendly, affectionate interest to each and every breath. Each and every breath is our life. Each and every breath is one breath less before we take our last breath. So each breath deserves our attention. However, when you do notice that your mind has wandered, as it inevitably will away from your breath, then just smile and make a very friendly, very gentle, silent, non-judgmental note of not breath. And then with a smile and your full awareness, return your full awareness to your breathing. Our whole practice is grounded on wise-heartedness. So you're encouraged to smile inwardly and you're encouraged to smile outwardly. You're encouraged to take delight in this moment, to take delight in this only moment. Breathing in, I fully experience the in-breath. Breathing out, I fully experience the out-breath. We can follow the in-breath from its start to the middle of the in-breath, to the end of the in-breath, and then notice whether there's a gap or a pause for the start of the out-breath, the middle of the out-breath, and the end of the out-breath. And then again, notice whether there's a gap and a pause before this whole magical cycle of life starts again. Buddha's famous talk on cultivating mindfulness of breathing, he suggests that we use the breath to relax the body and to cultivate joy, amongst many other things he asks us to use the breath for, including cultivating insight and wisdom. But for our purposes, we're going to shift our focus for the second part of our meditation from exclusively on the breath to an awareness of mind and body. And we might recite to ourselves, breathing in, I smile. And breathing out, I relax. So breathing in, I smile with a real or even just simply an imagined smile on our face, in our mind and in our heart. And breathing out, we relax our body, letting go of tension and discomfort on each out breath. So breathing in, I smile. Breathing out, I relax. We're dedicating these 20 minutes to our self-care, to our nurturing ourselves, to cultivating joy, cultivating serenity, cultivating tranquility, cultivating ease of body and ease of mind. And we can take these practices off of the cushion. Most importantly, we can take these practices off of the cushion. Breathing in, I smile. Breathing out, I relax. Breathing in, I smile. Breathing out, I relax. Thank you, everyone. It's a joy to be here today and a joy to share the Dharma. My doorway to Buddha Dharma was my doorway to the teachings of the Buddha were triggered by my recovery from alcohol addiction, my waking up to life as it really is, or really was. And once I dipped my toe into the Dharma, I very soon realized that the Buddha's teachings are grounded on recovery from innate addictions and compulsions. Everyone is addicted to something, be that described as greed, hatred, and ignorance, or addicted to craving, aversion, and delusion, or simply addicted to the notion of being a fixed, unchanging self. The Buddha said, in the past and also now, I teach suffering and the cessation of suffering. My understanding of his wider teachings are that he sees human beings as being addicted to the things that cause suffering, and indeed addicted to the suffering itself. So whether you would readily identify as being in recovery from addictions and compulsions, I would suggest that we're all in recovery from something and waking up to this life as it really is. The title of this talk is Looking for the Truth. So let's start with a quick thought about truth. Let's start with my views and opinions. which are just that. They are views and opinions. They are provisional. They are my current working hypothesis. They are most certainly subject to change. And just like my thoughts, my views and opinions are real, but they're not necessarily true. What is true is that the Dharma is the central doctrine of Buddhism, which consists of the experiences, the teachings, and the reflections of the Buddha and his students. The Dharma is one of the three refuges of the practicing Buddhist, and Dharma is often translated as law. The English Pali scholar Peter Harvey translates Dharma as the basic pattern of things, and I really like this translation. So we might say that the Dharma is the universal law of nature. But there's a distinction between Buddha Dharma and what we might call natural Dharma, and that is that the former is literally contained or circumscribed, largely but not entirely exclusively, within the monastic scriptures, whereas the latter references or relates to everything, ancient and modern, including but not limited to the physical sciences, modern neuroscience, for example, modern psychologies, and philosophies, both ancient and modern. I have a great fondness for Buddha Dharma, even with all its inconsistencies and its contradictions, which are perhaps inevitable considering the age, the size, and the scope of this vast body of work, and the way that it's been adopted and adapted and modified and represented by diverse populations and social and national cultures over the last 2,600 years. Having said that, I do hope that today's talk might inform you and inspire you to have an interest in traditional Buddhist Dharma, Buddha Dharma, and Dharma in its wider sense of the laws of nature. A Zen student monk once asked a master, Yun Men, "What are the teachings of a whole lifetime?" And Master Yun Men answered, "An appropriate response." So here's my current working hypothesis of what an appropriate response might be. This response is based in part on the Buddha's first talk after he awakened to life as it really is. To quote a translation of this talk, he says, "And now this, for the spiritually ennobled ones, is the true reality, which is pain. Birth is painful, aging is painful, illness is painful, death is painful, sorrow, lamentation, physical pain, unhappiness, and distress are painful. Union with what is disliked is painful. Separation from what is liked is painful. Not getting what one wants is painful. In brief, the 5 bundles of grasping fuel are painful." Now, these 5 bundles of grasping fuel is me, clinging to my body, clinging to my feelings, clinging to my perceptions, clinging to my inclinations and my consciousness, seeing them as complete and permanent, unchanging, controllable. When I grasp to these 5 bundles, it's painful. He proposed that the Dharma of life, or shall we say the basic pattern of life, is stressful, and suggested that we should investigate and fully understand what that stress actually means to each and every one of us, to make it personal. This is his first realization. This is his first teaching. The word that the Buddha used for pain is dukkha. And dukkha has its origin in a dirty axle hole. If you can imagine the hole in the center of a wheel where the axle goes, and if it's dirty or if it's not perfectly round or if it's got a stone stuck in it, as the wheel turns, we're going to get a bumpy ride. We're going to get a very uncomfortable ride. And this is the origin of this is the root meaning of the word dukkha, a bumpy ride, an uncomfortable journey. So we might expand the Buddha's first realization to life is stressful, life is uncomfortable, it's uncertain, insecure, disappointing. Life is complicated, it's boring, it's impersonal, it's difficult, it's distressing, it's challenging, It's unfair. Life is incapable of providing any lasting satisfaction. Life isn't just stressful. In many ways, life can be traumatic. Going back to the Buddha's first talk, he goes on to point out that much of the stress of life comes as a result of our human compulsions, our preferences and our aversions, which he says should be and can be overcome and abandoned. And these compulsions can be summarized as the desire for sensual pleasures, the desire for stimulation, excitement, and novelty, the desire to become, that is, to be someone, the desire for status, the desire for continued existence. And another compulsion is the desire not to be, not to exist, to avoid life, wishing that the ground would open up and swallow me whole. Interestingly, almost as a side note, when the Buddha speaks of lapses in mindfulness, he uses the term mutasati, or forgotten mindfulness. And mutta is derived from the verb musati, to forget, to pass into oblivion. So the opposite of mindfulness might be said to be oblivion, and particularly the oblivion that comes from forgetting, when we don't remember what we should be remembering. And I can recall in my drinking days, a large part of my drinking was in the search for oblivion, to forget and to just not to be here. Anyway, in short, we're compelled to keep chasing pleasure. We're compelled to survive at any cost. We're compelled to avoid pain. The Buddha's third realization is that it is possible for anyone to overcome these compulsions and desires. It's possible for anyone to personally experience and to personally verify the absence of these compulsions. And many of us here today, many people here today have already shared this experience, but we forget to remember just how much we've achieved in recovery. And lastly, the Buddha realizes that we would all benefit from actively engaging in a program that supports the abandonment of harmful compulsions and minimizes unnecessary stress. And this is where he offers us the Eightfold Path. So these four realizations of the Buddha are part of the basic pattern of life. This is the Dharma of life. And as I've already said, from my perspective, the Dharma of life goes way beyond what might be considered traditional Buddha Dharma. By its very nature, the Dharma of life encompasses modern natural sciences, particularly neurosciences and modern psychologies. So as well as taking a look at traditional Buddhist-oriented resources, I would encourage you to investigate being human through these non-Buddhist potential avenues of understanding. And I believe rather counterintuitively that this actually deepens our Buddhist practice in the widest possible sense. Humans, along with other living beings, are not programmed to be happy or even content. Our primary instinct is to survive and reproduce. Contentment is not encouraged by natural selection because it would be detrimental to the vigilance once needed to protect us from possible threats to our survival. So we're not programmed to be happy. We're stuck on a hedonic treadmill, constantly seeking safety and certainty, forever chasing things that please us, always trying to avoid things that we don't like, and clinging to a sense of self that just causes yet more pain. This truly is samsara. We're going around in circles and wondering why we find ourselves back where we started, bewildered and confused and no happier. Pain is a fact of life, and trying to avoid the unavoidable pain of life just creates more pain. Now, another fact of life is impermanence, which is ever present, but is usually not seen and it's even ignored. It stares us in the face, but it's overlooked or forgotten. The ever-changing arising and falling of causes and conditions. Everything is temporary. Everything is transient. Everything is impermanent. Tagged on to the Buddha's first talk, one of his former companions, Kondanya, insightfully declares, whatever is subject to arising is also subject to cessation. The Zen master Suzuki Roshi summed up the whole of the Buddhist path with just 2 words: everything changes. In terms of ourself, we might recognize that everyone, including ourselves, has the potential to change. We're not a fixed, unchanging self. We shouldn't be frightened by change and impermanence. We should embrace it. It can be so liberating to see and acknowledge that whether we like it or not, everyone and everything does change, including ourselves. In a lovely free book that I know some of you are aware of, Jeff Oliver's book called Forgiveness for Everyone, he repeatedly uses a refrain along the lines of, that was who I was then. It's not who I am now. It's not who I will be in the future. Such a simple but an empowering recognition of impermanence and the potential that impermanence gives us. On another note, verse number 6 in the Dhammapada, these 423 verses, short verses in the Dhammapada, verse number 6 says, there are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who do realize this settle their quarrels and conflicts. Which is basically saying that once you realize that we're all going to die, then there's no point in being in conflict. There's no point in holding on to regrets and resentments. We've looked at the facts of life that are pain, that are impermanence. And to complete the set, we might look at the fact of life of not self, of impersonality, as it were. The realization of no fixed, unchanging, controllable single self or soul. I quoted earlier from the Buddha's first talk, where he says, in brief, the 5 bundles of grasping fuel are painful. And these 5 bundles are my body and the world that it experiences. And this is so important. I construct my world from moment to moment with each point of sense contact. My brain's enclosed in a skull that can't see out or hear or smell or taste or touch. My brain just interprets electrical signals from the outside world and it constructs a world around me. So I have a body and I have a world around me. It's part of of my, as the Buddha describes, myself. So I have a body and I experience hedonic tones. I experience pleasant and unpleasant, and sometimes, or a lot of the time actually, a lot of what I experience is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And these feelings, these hedonic tones, these feeling tones are triggered by sensual contact with my body and with the world outside, my simulated world. The third clinging aggregate or third clinging heap are my perceptions, my memories and my concepts and my mental constructs. The fourth component of being a self are my inclinations, my habit-forming inclinations. And the fifth division of myself is my consciousness, the consciousness that sees, hears, smells, tastes, touch, that interprets those, that recognizes those. And when we put all of these together, it gives the illusion of a fixed, permanent, unchanging, controllable self or soul. And the Buddha said that, if you look close enough, you just can't find this self. You can't find a soul. So the notion of self that is fixed and unchanging and controllable is a false notion, is a confusion, is a delusion. The 5 bundles, these 5 bundles are not me and they're not my soul. My body is not myself. I've got little or no control over my body. And every time I look at myself in the mirror or I look at my hands, the backs of my hands, who is that man staring back to me? Who owns these hands? It's getting older and gnarled up and different and wrinkled. Who is this person? And So I had little or no control over my body. And as I get older, this becomes more apparent to me. My body's subject to change. It's subject to sickness. It's subject to old age. And eventually, of course, it's going to be subject to death. And this experience of being Vince Cullen no longer exists in the world. The world will carry on, I've got no doubt, but I won't. The feelings of pleasant and unpleasant that I experience, they're not me. A lot of those are conditioned in me. My perceptions and my memories and my constructs are not me. Again, they're conditioned in me. My preferences and aversions aren't me. My inclinations are not me. My consciousness that sometimes is aware of my body, my form, my feelings, my perception and my inclination, that's not me either. These 5 bundles, either individually or when put together, are not me. They're not mine and they're not myself. As the Buddha puts it, this is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. In his book, A Treatise on Human Nature, David Hume, the 18th century Scottish philosopher, historian and economist, librarian and essayist, said that the self is nothing but a bundle or collection of different perceptions which succeed each other with an inconceivable rapidity that are in a perpetual flux and movement. So even David Hume, who would have been unlikely to have come across Buddhist notions in his day, he found that the self is just a bundle of different perceptions anyway. From an evolutionary psychology perspective, there's a theory that says that the brain constructs mental modules referred to as sub-selves. And possible sub-self modules would be the sub-self module of self-protection. So the self that decides whether this current present moment experience is a threat, whether I should freeze or flee or fight. Another sub-self module would be that of mate attraction. Is this experience an opportunity for me to attract and to gain a mate? Another sub-self would be that of mate retention. Is this experience that I'm having in my world a threat to my mate retention? Is it a threat to my being able to reproduce? Another sub-self would be that of making affiliations. Is this an opportunity, this experience, an opportunity to make affiliations that would give me a greater ability to attract mates, would be less threat to retaining a mate, and would improve my self-protection. So affiliations are very important, and there's a part of self that arises when experience would allow that. Another sub-self that would arise would be that of kin care, where we put the care of our children and our relatives, our tribe, our clan, above all else. Another sub-self that might arise is that of status. Is this experience an opportunity for me to increase my status? Because increased status gives me a better chance of affiliations, a better chance of mate attraction, and has a knock-on effect to all the other things that go towards protecting the self. And perhaps the last sub-self would be that of disease avoidance. So to stay away from people who've got spots and things and bits falling off of them, obvious disease avoidance. And this theory says that any sub-self module can be in control at any time, and any sub-self module can activate other sub-self modules. In terms of clinging to a self-identity, we might see that strong negative emotions normally solidify and contract around a very strong sense of self, and particularly around a sense of self that needs to be protected. So emotions like guilt and shame, fear, etc., victimhood, threat, we contract around a sense of self that needs to be protected. The Buddha gives some very evocative similes to illustrate the ephemeral nature of the 5 bundles, these 5 heaps that make up the self. He says that the body is like a lump of sea foam. He says that the feelings, feeling tones are like bubbles. Our perceptions are like a mirage, and our mental formations are like a hollow plant. And our consciousness is like a magic trick. In the Buddha's second talk, he talks about the inconstant, stressful, and subject to change nature of these 5 bundles. And he says, seeing thus, the well-instructed disciples of the noble ones grows disenchanted with form, disenchanted with feelings, disenchanted with perceptions, disenchanted with inclinations, disenchanted with consciousness. Disenchanted, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, he is fully released. So this disenchantment, this breaking the spell, seeing through the conjurer's trick, allows us to not take things quite so personally. I'm very conscious of the time. It's a very big subject, so much I haven't got through, but just to wrap up and give us time for a couple of questions and answers, and for Susanna to wrap up. I'll just close by saying that, although we're not genetically predisposed to happiness and contentedness, I think that an embodied approach to impermanence, an embodied approach to pain of human life, and non-human life, of course, and an embodied approach to not taking life personally is a recipe for contentedness. When we stop arguing with impermanence, we stop arguing with unavoidable pain, and we stop clinging to a sense of self that constantly has to be protected. And when we live in full harmony with these truths, with these facts of life, then contentedness will follow. Every time I feel like arguing with these things, it's a big warning bell that says, think again, Vince. Can we live fully in spite of the difficult? I think that's an individual choice. The Buddha, or not the Buddha, but in certain Zen traditions, they say that life consists of 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows. Well, I certainly think that our practice can lead to more joys than we have sorrows. But joy and sorrow, or joy and sadness, are not mutually exclusive, and they can exist together. Every morning, my coffee tastes good, even in the midst of the difficult, and that's my choice. So I'm going to end there to give time. I'm very conscious of the lack of time, to give a little bit of time for question and answers. I don't know if there's anything in the chat box, is there? Thank you. As it happened, for anyone left, I actually forgot to share one of my screens. I'll just share it now if I can. And this is what I didn't share.
Okay. So maybe it's useful for people to take a picture of that as well.
Oh, if they wanted to, yeah. Just my sort of take on those 4 realizations, the 4, what's normally termed the 4 noble truths. You just, we need to cut ourselves some slack and recognize what it is to be human, and then abandon those painful compulsions and addictions. Get familiar with what it feels like when they're not present, and then to train our mind and body to live a good life. So, not that it matters. You might slip that into the edited version of the video. I don't know, but for anyone interested, it's just a different way, and you might notice the RAFT acronym, but that's another talk for another day.
Next time you will be talking about that. Okay. Thank you, Vince, for the wise words. I was thinking that it would be so useful to have this all on paper, to come back to it. It was so full of things, and I myself, I got message in the middle of your talk that I'm COVID positive. So it's a very good place to let go of all the ideas that I have about things for being permanent or something like that. Yeah. Yes, I will post the Dana link because I noticed that I had missed one letter before in there. I will post it later as well. There doesn't seem to be questions in the chat for Vince. There is one question asking possible to get a copy of the recorded meeting. They will be as podcasts later on. But do we have anybody who has a burning desire? We have 3 minutes about before the closing. So if somebody has got a burning desire for a question, something that they think. Shaku says in the chat, Vince, I love your the clarity of your presentation. Do you have a book?
Actually, no. But what I do have, there is a little pamphlet called From Hungry Ghosts to Being Human, and it's freely downloadable off of the Fifth Precept website. And on the same website, there's another little booklet called the Forgiveness Workbook, looking at forgiveness through the lens of the 5 precepts. They're both of them are works in progress. And yes, maybe I should get round to writing something. But for the moment, that's all I've got. So thank you for even asking that question. I don't know whether anyone can type quicker than me. I've got 2 websites. The first is the Fifth Precept Sangha website, which is literally, if you look up Fifth Precept Sangha, or it's www, or let me see if I can type it in.
Yeah, I have all the links here. I have all the links. I'm gonna post them after the Q&A. So, or okay. So in actually now, I can post them now. But yeah.
The Fifth Precept website is for anyone wishing to live in harmony with the 5 precepts, the wishing to live a harmless life, not harming ourselves or harming anyone else. Originally, it was about recovery from drugs and alcohol, about the 5th precept, but it's about all the precepts, about living in harmony with all the precepts. And there are, in fact, there's a sit and share meeting in 1 hour's time today, and it's my privilege and pleasure. It's my turn to be the host tonight. So that's the Fifth Precept Sangha. The other website is the Hungry Ghost Retreats website, literally www.hungryghostretreats.org. And that's where I try to share some of the ideas and thoughts and concepts from the Fifth Precept that came out of the Fifth Precept Sangha, and this approach to living our lives harmlessly. I try to share that around the world on podcasts and in person. So there's a list of teaching dates and lots of past podcasts and a little bit of writing on there. So you're welcome to explore.
Okay, thanks for the resources. They're all posted now in the chat. So if people want to see from there.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. So perfect. I'm about to start closing up. Do you have something that you want to add, Vince, or shall I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, hopefully I might get a chance again, but just to thank everyone for being here and to thank you, Susanna, and the BRN for inviting me.
Thank you, Vince, a lot. It was very useful, hopefully for the others as well. And you can see all the thanks flooding to the chat. And when I'm done at the end things, you can also open your mic and say your thanks. So we will keep the room open for about 5 minutes after, so you can copy the links. So your generosity can help us to strengthen the recovery community and to grow the academy, and can be a practical expression of gratitude and metta. We invite you to practice generosity and to give dana in support of these teachings, to be shared with our teacher and with the Buddhist Recovery Network. And the link is coming there in just a second. Multitasking mode. tonight. And I will also, post a link to the Buddhist Recovery Academy's podcasts. So there's, for example, Kevin Griffin's talk that Kevin was our guest 2 months ago. And Vince's talk will be there eventually as well, as it's being edited. And yes, at this point, I want to thank you. And our next Academy event is going to be on it's always the first Sunday of the month. So it would be the 1st of May, May Day, very big celebration day in Finland, maybe not in your country, but here people are going out and drinking. So that's a very good time to sit down without drinking and listening to Buddhist teachings. Yes. Yes, thank you, everybody. And I would like to say a couple of words to the end. So thank you for joining us today. May the merit we have gained benefit all living beings. May we all be happy, well, and peaceful. Thank you, everybody.